Get out of here! I didn't invite you, my son shouted when I tried to take a seat at the table I had personally prepared since 5 a.m. for his birthday celebration. Yet this was my own home. I rose slowly, walked toward the door, and did something that left every guest completely stunned. You know that sensation when the ground vanishes beneath your feet? When words enter your ears but take several seconds to reach your brain because they're so outrageous that your mind refuses to process them. That's precisely what I experienced on that Saturday evening, March 23rd. There I stood, an apron still tied around my waist. That floral apron I've worn for 15 years, stained with tomato sauce and grease from countless meals. My hands were shaking, clutching the white porcelain plate, the same set I received at my wedding and cherished for 42 years. The aroma of roasted pork still filled the entire room. Golden balloons floated near the ceiling. 30 people stared at me with that expression, caught between pity and embarrassment. And my son, my only son, Brandon, that boy I carried in my arms, whom I rocked through feverish nights, whom I watched become an engineer. There he stood, red with anger, pointing his finger in my direction, as if I were an intruder, a stranger in my own home. Mom, don't you understand? That seat is already taken. His voice sliced through the silence that had descended upon the room. Patricia, my daughter-in-law, stood beside him with that subtle smile, almost invisible, but one I knew well. It was the smile of someone winning a war I didn't even know existed. I looked at the table, the dining table in my living room, that solid wood table I purchased, paid off in 12 installments when Brandon was 8 years old. The embroidered tablecloth was mine, the plates were mine. The silver cutlery that belonged to my mother all gleamed under the chandelier light. Even the chandelier was mine, and I had no place at that table. I felt my chest tighten. It wasn't just the humiliation, it was something deeper, more painful. It was the feeling that everything I had fought for, every morning waking at 5 to sew, every penny saved, every dream I swallowed to fulfill his dreams, had transformed into nothing, less than nothing, into a burden. But you know what's most ironic? In that exact moment, while everyone expected me to leave crying, defeated, humiliated, something inside me awakened. A voice I hadn't heard in a long time, the voice of 25-year-old Martha, the one who didn't bow down, the one who wasn't afraid. And that voice told me something very clear. Lift your head and show them who really runs this place. I took a deep breath, placed the plate slowly on the sideboard. I removed my apron calmly, folding it in 4 sections, as I always do, and walked toward the door, feeling the weight of 67 years on my back, but also feeling something new. The certainty that this evening would not end as they expected. Before leaving, I stopped, turned around, looked at each face in that room, Brandon's friends, work colleagues, Patricia's family, and said just 6 words that would echo for months. Enjoy the party, enjoy it well, and I left. But what nobody there knew, not even my son, not that woman he called his wife, is that I wasn't running away. I was preparing for war. And if you think you know stories of revenge, of justice, of mothers who went too far, believe me, you haven't seen anything yet, because what happened after that door closed was something none of them ever imagined. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any detail of this story that will make you question everything about family, loyalty, and how far a mother can go when betrayed by the one she loved most. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand on the wooden railing that I myself varnished 3 times over the years. Each step creaked. There were 15 steps. I knew them by heart. 15 steps that separated me from that room full of people laughing, drinking the wine I bought, eating the food I prepared. Downstairs, I already heard Patricia's voice resuming control of the party as if nothing had happened. Everyone, let's toast. Brandon, honey, come here. Her voice was sweet, almost childish, in that way she used when she wanted to seem innocent. I entered my bedroom, the only room in the house that was still truly mine, and locked the door. My legs finally gave out. I sat on the edge of the bed, that double bed where I slept beside James for 28 years, and where I've slept alone for 12. The tears came. Not the dramatic tears from soap operas, no. They were silent tears, hot, that rolled down and soaked the collar of my blue blouse. The blouse I chose so carefully that morning, thinking, I want to look nice for my son's birthday. What an idiot I was. I looked at the closet mirror. I saw a woman with gray hair pulled into a low bun, wrinkles around her eyes, hands calloused from so much work. An invisible woman, a woman who had become a ghost in her own home. That's when my gaze fell on the antique dresser, that dark mahogany one that belonged to my grandmother, the bottom drawer that I never opened. I rose slowly, still wiping tears with the back of my hand, and opened that drawer. Inside was a faded blue plastic folder. I pulled it out and felt the weight of the papers inside. I sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, and opened it. The house deed, bank transfer receipts, yellowed payment stubs, everything was there. Every penny I had invested in this house, $380,000 at the time. It was a fortune. It was everything I had from James's accident settlement, plus 23 years of my savings as a seamstress, every invoice saved, every receipt, and there on the last page of the deed was his name, Brandon Henry Taylor, 50% owner. I had put his name there out of love, because I thought I was securing my son's future. Because in my loving mother's mind, I imagined that one day he would care for me the same way I cared for him. I ran my finger over that signature, my signature from 12 years ago when I still believed in happy endings. Downstairs, I heard the party noise increasing, laughter, music. Someone broke a glass and everyone shouted. Patricia let out a shrill laugh, and it was in that moment, sitting on my bedroom floor with old papers scattered around me and the noise from the party I couldn't attend invading my refuge, that something inside me changed. It wasn't anger yet, no. It was something colder, more calculated. It was clarity. I had spent the last 3 years yielding, accepting, swallowing increasingly bitter pills, letting that woman transform my house into her territory, allowing my son to distance himself more and more, to treat me like an inconvenient old woman who needed to be tolerated. But tolerance has limits. I grabbed my cell phone, a simple model, one of those with large buttons for seniors, and did something I never imagined I would do. I called Attorney Harrison, the lawyer who handled James's estate. It was 8:40 on a Saturday evening, but he answered his phone for longtime clients. Hello, Mrs. Martha. Everything all right? Attorney, forgive the hour. My voice was firm, and that surprised me. I need to schedule an urgent consultation. It's about my house deed. There was a pause. Did something happen? It happened. I looked at the papers on the floor. It happened that I finally woke up. We scheduled for Monday, first thing in the morning. When I hung up, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone climbing the stairs. My bedroom door wasn't just closed, it was locked. But even so, I felt my heart racing. 3 sharp knocks. Mom. It was Brandon's voice, only now it was different. Lower, almost ashamed. Are you okay in there? I didn't respond. Mom, open the door, we need to talk. I put the documents back in the folder, placed the folder back in the drawer. I got up from the floor, straightened my blouse, dried my face, and only then, after taking 3 deep breaths, did I open the door. He stood there in that blue dress shirt I ironed on Thursday. He had a strange expression on his face. It wasn't regret, it was discomfort, as if my presence there, in that state, was disrupting his perfect party. Do you want to come down? There's cake now. He spoke as if doing me a favor. I looked into his eyes, those brown eyes that used to look at me with admiration when he was a child. No, thank you. I already ate dinner. I lied. My stomach had been empty since noon. Mom, don't be like this. Patricia already apologized. She did. I arched an eyebrow. To me? No. He looked away. It's just that you know how it is. She was nervous about the party. She wanted everything to turn out perfect. And I ruined perfection. Is that it? I didn't say that, but he didn't deny it either. I held the doorknob. Brandon, you can return to your party. I'm fine. Excellent, actually. And I closed the door slowly, with control. I heard his footsteps moving away, hesitant at first, then faster, almost relieved. I returned to the bed, didn't lie down. I stayed seated, looking at the closed dresser drawer, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something that wasn't sadness or resignation. It was power. The power of someone who knows something others don't know. The power of someone who has cards up their sleeve. The power of someone who finally decided to play the game. The party continued until almost midnight. I heard every laugh, every song, every toast, and I stayed there in silence, planning, because they might have won that night. But the war had just begun. Monday arrived like a blessing. The house was quiet. Brandon had left early for work, and Patricia slept late, as she always did. I dressed in my black pants, a cream blouse, and the brown blazer I wear for important occasions. I applied lipstick, pinned up my hair, put on comfortable flats. I looked in the mirror and saw the Martha I needed to be in that moment, firm, determined, aware of her own worth. Attorney Harrison's office was downtown, in an old 3-story building with a noisy elevator. I arrived at 8:15. He received me with strong coffee and a worried look. "Mrs. Martha, tell me what happened." And I told him, "Not everything. Some pains you keep just for yourself, but I told enough." He took notes on a yellow pad, frowning occasionally, shaking his head at other times. When I finished, he sighed deeply. "Do you remember when you put Brandon's name on the deed? I had recommended making a will instead. Do you remember?" Of course I remembered. But back then, 12 years ago, I was still grieving. James had died just 3 months earlier. I was alone, frightened, with a 30-year-old son who had just graduated and was starting his career. It seemed to make sense to ensure he had something solid, something concrete. I thought I was protecting him, I admitted quietly. I thought if something happened to me, at least he would have somewhere to live. And now I need to know. Can I reverse this? Attorney Harrison opened a file, put on his reading glasses. "Legally, yes. The house was purchased with your money. We have all the receipts. You included Brandon as co-owner out of generosity, without him contributing financially. This can be reversed, but it will be difficult and it will hurt." "Hurt how? Will it completely rupture this relationship? Are you sure that's what you want?" I thought about his shout, Patricia's expression, the feeling of being expelled from my own table. "Attorney, that relationship is already broken. I just hadn't realized it yet." He removed his glasses, cleaned the lenses carefully. "Then I need you to tell me everything. From the beginning, every penny invested, every sacrifice, we're going to build a solid case." And that's what I did. I told him about James, my husband, my companion, the man I met at 19 at a church dance at St. Rose. He was a construction worker. I was a beginning seamstress. We married at 22, living in a rented room of 250 square feet, where the bed almost touched the stove. Brandon was born 3 years later, a complicated cesarean that left me 5 days in the hospital. James worked double that month to pay for the insurance. When we brought our son home, he cried with emotion, holding that little pink bundle wrapped in a crocheted blanket. Those were difficult years, but happy ones. James worked from sunrise to sunset. I sewed until my vision blurred. I made party dresses, alterations, adjustments. I became known in the neighborhood. Mrs. Martha makes the best hems, the most careful stitching. Clients were loyal, and I saved every $50 bill, every 20, inside a cookie tin hidden in the cupboard. When Brandon was 8, we managed to buy our first property, a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. Nothing luxurious, but it was ours. I remember the pride on James's face when signing the deed. "Our boy will have somewhere to live, Martha. He won't go through what we went through." The years passed. Brandon was a good student, studious, dedicated. He got a partial scholarship at a private engineering college, but partial wasn't full. We still needed to pay half, $4,700 per month for 5 years. James took extra shifts. I worked until 10, 11 at night on the sewing machine. Our son couldn't know how much it cost. We didn't want him to carry that burden. We wanted him only to study, to enjoy his youth, to build his future. until the accident came. August 2013, a Tuesday. James was working on a 15-story construction site in Brooklyn. Problem with the scaffolding. 3 men fell, 2 survived. James didn't have the same luck. Attorney Harrison listened to me in silence. When I reached this part, my voice failed. He pushed the tissue box in my direction. The construction company paid the settlement after a year of legal proceedings. It was $450,000. It seemed like a lot of money, but it didn't bring back James. It didn't fill the emptiness of the house, didn't warm the other side of the bed. I took a tissue, blew my nose, continued. Brandon was in his 3rd year of college. I thought about giving up, asking him to take a break and work, but he begged. "Mom, let me finish. It's Dad's dream." And how could I deny that? So I paid every semester, every tuition until the end. $95,000 total over 3 years. Brandon graduated with honors. He got a good job at a construction company. Irony of fate. With what remained from the settlement plus my savings, I bought the house where we live today. A 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse in Flushing with a small yard and garage. $380,000 in 2015. I put Brandon's name along with mine because I thought it was right, because he was my only son. Because I thought, if I die tomorrow, at least he's protected. Attorney Harrison wrote everything down, asking for receipts, organizing documents. And when did he meet Patricia? My stomach churned just saying her name. 4 years ago, at a work party. She was an administrative intern, 8 years younger than him. Pretty, I won't lie. But there was something in her eyes that bothered me from day one. What? Calculation. You know when you look at someone and feel like she's measuring everything? How much is it worth? What does it cost? What can she gain from it? That's it. But Brandon was enchanted, in love. And who was I to speak against it? They married quickly, 6 months of dating, and they were already at the altar of St. Anthony's Church. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. I paid for the bride's dress, $12,000, at a fancy boutique Patricia chose, and still helped with the reception. Another $28,000. Do you have receipts for this? I have everything, attorney. I keep everything, because that's always been my nature. Keep, preserve, protect. Every invoice, every receipt, every transfer confirmation. It's all there, in that mahogany dresser drawer. Attorney Harrison closed the notepad, removed his glasses, looked at me seriously. Mrs. Martha, you built this life alone, paid for this house alone, supported this family alone, and now you're being treated like an intruder. This isn't right. I know. My hands trembled, but my voice was firm. That's why I'm here, because I'm tired of being stepped on, tired of being invisible, and if I need to prove my worth with papers and contracts, then so be it. He opened a sad smile. We'll get justice, but prepare yourself. It's going to get ugly. It's already ugly, attorney. It's been ugly for a long time. I was just pretending not to see. I left that office with a folder full of documents to provide and a deadline. 15 days to gather everything. 15 days to build my defense. 15 days before dropping the bomb. And as I descended in the noisy elevator, looking at my reflection in the scratched mirror, I thought, James, wherever you are, give me strength, because I'm going to need every ounce of courage that exists within me. The war had begun, and this time I wasn't going to lose. I returned home that Monday with my head buzzing. I entered through the kitchen door, placed my purse on the table, and heard voices in the living room. Patricia was on the phone, her shrill voice echoing through the walls. No, Mom, I said that gray sofa doesn't match anything. We need something more modern, you know? This house looks like it stopped in the 90s. My house. She was talking about my house. I took a deep breath. It wasn't time for confrontation. Not yet. So I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and began searching through drawers. I needed all the receipts, all the proof. And as I rummaged through boxes and old folders, memories returned like a flood. The invasion didn't happen overnight. It was slow, gradual, like water eroding stone, drop by drop, until you notice the damage and it's too late. It started 3 years ago, right after the wedding. Patricia arrived with 2 suitcases and a charming smile. "Mother-in-law, I promise I'll take good care of your son." I believed her. I hugged her, kissed her cheek, said, "This house is yours too." I should have bitten my tongue. In the first weeks, she was discreet, tidied the couple's bedroom, helped in the kitchen, complimented my cooking. "Mrs. Martha, your beans are the best I've ever tasted." I smiled proudly, thinking, what a wonderful daughter-in-law my son found. But then came the suggestions. "Mother-in-law, don't you think these lace curtains are kind of outdated? You could put in some blinds. It looks more clean." Clean. She loved that word. Everything had to be clean. I changed the curtains. I spent $2,300 on white blinds that made the living room look like a doctor's office. But she was happy, and I wanted her to be happy. Then came the paintings. I had 3 paintings in the living room. One of a landscape I bought at a craft fair in the Catskills, another with a photo of James that I had enlarged and framed, and a cross-stitch piece my mother made before she died. One day I came home, and all 3 had disappeared. "Patricia, did you see the paintings that were here?" She was on the sofa on her phone with that look of someone who doesn't want to be bothered. "Oh, mother-in-law, I put those away. It was too visually cluttered. I bought some abstract posters. Look how beautiful." She pointed to the wall, where there were now 3 black frames with colorful scribbles that meant nothing. "And where did you put my paintings?" "In the storage room, out back. But relax, everything's put away safely." I went to the storage room. I found the paintings thrown on top of old boxes, the frame of James's photo with the glass cracked. I held that picture against my chest and cried right there in the middle of the dust and cobwebs. But I didn't complain, because I didn't want to create problems, didn't want to be that annoying, complaining mother-in-law who objects to everything. So I swallowed it and kept swallowing. She changed the Persian rugs I had in the living room, inheritance from my grandmother, handmade over 50 years old, for some fluffy gray rugs that shed fibers and stuck to clothes. It's Scandinavian style, mother-in-law. Super trendy. She changed the embroidered sofa cushions for plain linen ones. She threw away my hand-painted porcelain tea set, a wedding gift from my godmother, because it takes up too much space in the cabinet and nobody uses that anymore. But the worst, what really broke me inside, was the wall clock. It was a solid bronze clock, heavy, with a glass pendulum and bell chime. James bought it at an antique shop in Manhattan. He paid $800, which at the time was a lot of money. It was a gift for our 15th wedding anniversary. He had a message engraved on the back, to Martha, who makes every second worthwhile, "Your James." That clock marked every important moment of my life. It was striking noon when Brandon was born. It was striking 6 in the evening when I received the news of James's death. It was striking 10 at night when my son graduated as an engineer. One day I came back from the grocery store, and the wall was empty. I felt my heart race. "Brandon! Brandon, where's the clock?" He appeared on the stairs, drying his hair with a towel, unconcerned. "What clock, Mom?" "Your father's clock, the bronze one that was right there." Oh, he didn't even look at the wall. Patricia thought it was too old-fashioned. She threw it away. Threw it away. My voice came out in a scream I couldn't control. It was the first time I exploded, and the first time I saw his look change when he spoke to me. It was an impatient look, irritated, as if I were exaggerating. "Mom, for God's sake, it's just an old clock. We'll buy another one." It wasn't just a clock, it was your father's. My father died 12 years ago. We need to move forward. Move forward as if memory were dead weight, as if love were something disposable. I ran to the laundry room. I searched the trash. Nothing. I ran outside. The truck had already passed. I went back inside the house and cried for 2 hours, locked in the bathroom with the faucet running so no one would hear me. Patricia never apologized, didn't even pretend to feel remorse, but the invasion didn't stop. She convinced Brandon to transform my sewing studio, that little room in the back where I sewed for 30 years, into a home office, Mother-in-law, you barely sew anymore anyway, right? And Brandon needs a space to work from home. True, I had reduced my sewing work. My vision wasn't the same anymore. My hands ached with arthritis. But that space was mine. It was my refuge, my corner, my piece of identity. And I gave in. They removed my old Singer sewing machine, the clothing racks, the boxes of threads organized by color. They put in a modern white desk, computer, ergonomic chair, bulletin board. They painted the walls light gray. When I entered that room after the transformation, I didn't recognize anything. It was as if they had erased 30 years of my history with a paint roller. It looks beautiful, doesn't it, mother-in-law? Patricia smiled. Much more functional. Functional, modern, clean, but empty of soul, empty of me. And the worst was still to come, because she didn't just want to transform the house, she wanted to erase me completely. She started treating me differently. She no longer called me mother-in-law affectionately. It was always Mrs. Martha, creating distance. In front of visitors, she introduced me as Brandon's mother, never the owner of the house or who lives here with us. She stopped asking my opinion about grocery shopping. She simply bought what she wanted, period. She switched my coffee brand to her expensive one. She threw away my old pressure cooker because I bought an electric one. It's safer for you at your age, as if 67 years were synonymous with incapacity. She started giving orders to Regina, the housekeeper I pay $400 a month from my retirement money. Regina, you don't need to ask, Mrs. Martha. I'll leave a list of what needs cleaning. And poor Regina didn't know whom to obey, looking from me to her with a desperate face. Even my place at the table changed. Before, I sat at the head. After all, it was my house, my table. Patricia gradually pushed me to the corner, until one day she simply decreed, "Mother-in-law, let's change the seating? It works better for serving this way." And I once again gave in. Attorney Harrison was right that morning in the office. The invasion was so slow that when I noticed, I had no more space. My house had been taken, my son had been manipulated, and I had become the intruder in my own life. But as I gathered those documents, those proofs, those receipts of every penny invested, I felt something grow inside me. It wasn't hate, it was determination. Because one thing I learned over these 67 years, you can take my paintings, my clocks, my studio, you can push me to the corner of the table, you can treat me like a burdensome old woman, but you can't take what's mine by right. And this house was mine, and I was going to prove it. 15 days passed since that consultation with Attorney Harrison. 15 days in which I lived a lie, pretending normalcy while inside I was architecting every move. I gathered all the documents he requested, payment receipts for the house, bank statements, college receipts for Brandon, invoices for renovations, electric, water, and property tax bills, everything in my name, everything paid by me. But life continued, and with it came my son's birthday. March 23rd. Brandon would turn 42. I always made a point of celebrating this date as if it were sacred. After all, it was the day I became a mother, the day my life gained a greater purpose. A week earlier, Patricia appeared in the kitchen while I was preparing lunch. She leaned on the counter, crossed her arms, and said in that tone of someone who's already decided everything, "Mother-in-law, we're going to throw a party for Brandon on Saturday. Nothing too big, just about 30 friends. 30 people in my house." My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. "Of course. Do you want me to prepare something?" She gave a little laugh. "No need, mother-in-law. I already ordered everything from a catering company, appetizers, sweets, cake, everything top quality." I felt a sting. I always made Brandon's birthdays, always. From the first when I made a simple carrot cake decorated with colored sprinkles to last year when I prepared a complete feijoada he loved. But I can make his roast pork. You know how he likes it. Patricia rolled her eyes. "Mother-in-law, no offense, but we want something more sophisticated this time. Everything's already arranged. Sophisticated, as if my food were too rustic, too simple, too old, but I wasn't going to give up like that. What about decorations? Can I help? Already hired a decorator. It's going to be beautiful. Gold and white theme, very elegant. Gold and white. Wedding colors, not birthday. But what did I understand, right? I was just the mother. During that week, I watched the house be transformed. Patricia received deliveries daily. Rented chairs, folding tables, flower arrangements, boxes of dishes. The fancy plastic kind that imitates porcelain. Everything paid with the joint credit card that was in my name and that I paid religiously every month. I asked, "How much is all this costing?" "Don't worry, mother-in-law. Everything's under control." But I worried, because control for her meant spending without limits and leaving the bill for me. Saturday arrived. I woke at 5 in the morning, not because they asked me, but because I couldn't stay idle. It was my son's birthday, and I was going to do something, even if it meant going against her will. I went down to the kitchen in the dark, turned on only the stove light. I took from the fridge the pork I had left marinating since the night before. Crushed garlic, black pepper, bay leaf, dark beer, mustard, and honey. The recipe James loved and that I taught Brandon when he was 10. I wrapped the pork in aluminum foil, placed it in a low oven. 6 hours of slow cooking. While it roasted, I prepared the farofa, bacon in cubes, golden onion, grated carrot, parsley, chopped hard-boiled eggs. The smell began taking over the kitchen, climbing the stairs, filling every room. At 7, there were footsteps. Patricia appeared in her nightgown with a sleepy, irritated face. "What's that smell?" "Good morning. I made the pork for Brandon." She huffed. "Mother-in-law, I said you didn't need to. I already ordered everything. I know, but this is tradition. And tradition doesn't break." I saw her jaw clench, but she didn't argue. She just grabbed a glass of water and went back up, stomping on the stairs. I spent the entire day preparing. Besides the pork, I made rice with almonds, fresh vinaigrette, homemade hot sauce, condensed milk pudding, Brandon's favorite dessert since childhood. I arranged everything in pretty serving dishes, the white porcelain ones with blue details I got from my mother. At 3 in the afternoon, the deliveries from the catering company began arriving. Box after box of fancy appetizers, French sweets, pies, quiches. Patricia received everything with smiles, checking each item. When she saw my serving dishes in the kitchen, she frowned, but said nothing. At 5, I went up to my room to get ready. I chose a navy blue blouse Brandon gave me 2 birthdays ago. Black dress pants, comfortable low shoes. I applied rose-colored lipstick, pinned my hair in a low bun, put on my grandmother's pearl necklace. I looked in the mirror and thought, "You're his mother. You have a place at this party." I came down at 6. The house was transformed. Golden balloons floated near the ceiling. White flower arrangements decorated every corner. A long table had been set up in the living room with a white tablecloth and gold napkins. They even hired a DJ who was setting up equipment in the corner. Guests started arriving at 7. Well-dressed couples, perfumed, with gifts wrapped in sophisticated paper. I recognized some old friends of Brandon's, but most were people I'd never seen. His and Patricia's work colleagues, new friends from this modern world I wasn't part of. I stayed in the kitchen observing. Regina, the housekeeper, ran from one side to the other, serving drinks. Patricia circulated among guests as the perfect hostess, presenting the house, my house, as if it were her project. This living room we completely remodeled. Before it was very old-fashioned, you know. Old-fashioned. My living room, my life. Brandon arrived at 8, pretending surprise, although he knew everything. Everyone sang happy birthday. He blew out the candles on the 3-tier cake covered in white icing and gold details, photos, hugs, laughter, and I there, standing at the kitchen entrance, invisible, until they called for dinner. The table was set with the appetizers from the catering company, the pies, the gourmet salads. My serving dishes were there too, but pushed to the corner, almost hidden. The pork that took me 6 hours to make was at one end, as if it were an extra. I saw Brandon sit at the head, Patricia to his right, her parents, close friends, everyone settling into reserved seats. 30 people around that table, and I was still standing. I grabbed a plate, served myself some farofa and pork because I wanted to taste what I made with so much love, and headed to the table. There was an empty chair next to a couple I didn't know. I went there, plate in hand, about to sit. That's when Patricia stood up. Mrs. Martha. Her voice cut through the murmur of conversations. Everyone turned to look. That seat is reserved. I stopped, the plate still in my hands. Reserved for whom? For my mother. She's arriving any minute. I looked around. 30 chairs, 30 people, and none for me. Patricia, it's my son's birthday. I just want to sit down. Get out of here. Brandon's voice exploded like thunder. Everyone fell silent. The DJ stopped the music mid-song, 30 pairs of eyes staring at me. I didn't invite you. His words echoed through the room. Each syllable was a stab. I felt my legs wobble. The plate almost slipped from my hand. I looked at my son, that 42-year-old man in a blue dress shirt and trimmed beard, whom I carried in my arms, whom I rocked through feverish nights, whom I taught to walk, to read, to be a person. And he looked at me with anger, with shame, as if I were a stray dog that entered the party without permission. Brandon. My voice came out weak, trembling. Mom, for God's sake, don't you realize you're bothering everyone? Bothering in my own house, at the party I helped pay for, after having spent the entire day cooking. I felt my eyes burn, but I wasn't going to cry there, wasn't going to give them that satisfaction. I placed the plate slowly on the sideboard. I removed the apron still tied around my waist. That floral apron, stained, witness to 1,000 meals made with love. I folded it in 4, calmly, with all the dignity I still had, and walked to the door. 30 people in absolute silence. Some looked away, embarrassed, others whispered. I saw an elderly lady shake her head in disapproval, but I don't know if it was for me or for my son. Before climbing the stairs, I stopped, turned, looked at each face in that room, and said the only 6 words I could manage. Enjoy the party. Enjoy it well. I climbed those 15 steps with a straight back, my head held high. I entered my bedroom, locked the door, and only then, only when I was sure no one could see me, did I collapse. I cried like I hadn't cried since James's funeral. I cried for the lost years, for the ingratitude, for the humiliation, for having been expelled from my own life. But in the middle of those tears, a voice inside me whispered, "Enough." And this time, I listened. I spent the entire Sunday locked in my room. I heard when the last guests left, the laughter fading, the gate closing. I heard Regina cleaning up the mess, the sound of plates being stacked, chairs being dragged. I heard Patricia complaining that her feet hurt from so much high heels. Nobody knocked on my door to ask if I was okay. Monday dawned cloudy. Brandon left early for work without saying goodbye. Patricia slept late, as always. At 10 in the morning, I dressed in simple clothes and left without telling anyone. I took the bus downtown, got off at City Hall, and walked 3 blocks to the property registry office. I needed to pay the overdue property tax. Patricia had forgotten to pay the last 2 months, even though I had given her the money. The woman at the counter was young, hair pulled back, prescription glasses. "Good morning. How can I help you? I need to pay the property tax for my house. It's overdue." I gave the address. She typed on the computer, frowning. "You are Martha Cecilia Taylor, the owner." She looked at the screen, then at me, then at the screen again. "Do you have an ID?" I showed my driver's license and the deed I always carry in my purse, an old habit, but one that saved me that day. She checked everything, typed some more, and said a phrase that changed my life. "Mrs. Martha, did you know there's a property transfer process underway?" My heart froze. "What do you mean? Someone filed to remove your name from the deed and transfer the property entirely to Brandon Henry Taylor and Patricia Andrews Taylor." The ground disappeared from under my feet. I held onto the edge of the counter to keep from falling. When? 2 months ago, January 27th. 2 months. While I cooked, cleaned, paid bills, gave up space, while I pretended everything was fine, they were behind my back trying to steal from me. Is this process moving forward? It stopped because your signature is missing. Without that, There's no way to complete the transfer. I took a deep breath. At least that. Can I have a copy of this request? I can print it, but it'll cost $15. Print everything, please. I waited 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. When she handed me the stack of papers, I saw filled-out forms, Brandon's notarized signature, false declarations saying I had verbally agreed to the transfer. Everything signed by him and her, my children, or rather, my son and that viper. I paid the overdue property tax with my card, another $270 in late fees. I left that registry office with wobbly legs and a spinning head. I needed air. I sat on a bench in the square in front of City Hall. Pigeons pecked at crumbs on the ground. A street vendor offered coconut water. Everything continued normally in the world while mine collapsed. I grabbed my cell phone, called Attorney Harrison. "Attorney, I need to see you today, now." "Mrs. Martha, did something happen?" I discovered they tried to remove me from the house deed. There was a heavy silence. "I'll be there in half an hour. Can you wait for me at the office?" I arrived before him. I climbed those 3 flights of stairs because I couldn't stay still in the elevator. When he arrived, I was already sitting in the reception, holding the registry papers so tightly they wrinkled at the edges. We entered his office. He read everything carefully, his expression becoming increasingly grave. When he finished, he removed his glasses and rubbed his face. "Mrs. Martha, this is attempted misappropriation. They forged your consent. If they had succeeded, you would be on the street. But they didn't succeed. No, but they tried, and they'll try again." He opened a drawer, took out a small digital recorder. "Do you have a cell phone?" "I do." "Then from now on, record everything. Every suspicious conversation, every argument, every mention of money, house, transfer, everything. We need evidence." I returned home at 3 in the afternoon. Patricia was in the living room watching TV, eating popcorn, painting her nails red. She didn't look when I entered. "Hi, mother-in-law." "Did you have lunch?" "Yes," I lied. My stomach was churning just thinking about food. I went up to my room and waited. At 7, Brandon arrived. I heard his voice greeting Patricia, the sound of his bag being thrown on the sofa, the refrigerator opening. I stayed lying on the bed, eyes open, phone in hand. At 8:30, I heard footsteps in the hallway, muffled voices coming from their bedroom next to mine. I got up from the bed, opened the bedroom door slowly, without making noise. The hallway was dark. Their door was ajar. Patricia always complained about heat and left it open to circulate air. I approached. My heart was beating so hard I was afraid they would hear. I grabbed my cell phone, opened the recording app, pressed the red button, and pressed the device against the crack in the door. Patricia's voice was irritated. "Brandon, I can't stand it anymore. Your mother is dead weight in this house." "Patricia, don't talk like that. Don't talk like that. Nothing. She keeps meddling, keeps giving her opinion, keeps existing. We need that deed clean, honey, without her in the middle." "I know, but the process stopped because of her signature. Then convince her to sign. Say it's to facilitate the estate when she dies. I don't know. Make something up. Make up, lie, manipulate the old idiot." My hand trembled holding the cell phone, but I didn't stop recording. "And why do we need this deed so badly anyway?" Brandon's voice sounded tired. "Because we owe $87,000 on credit cards, Brandon," Patricia exploded. $87,000 plus the car that costs $1,230 per month, and we can't pay anymore. The bank is going to take the car if we don't get a loan. How does the deed help? We use the house as collateral, honey. We get a loan of $420,000. Pay everything, money left over, and we finally breathe. But it's my mother's house. It was your mother's. Now it's ours. And she can't keep getting in the way of our plans. We need to grow, have our space, build our life. And she's not part of that." Silence. A long, heavy silence. I held my breath, eyes burning with contained tears. "But what if she finds out?" Patricia let out a short, bitter laugh. "Finds out what? The old woman barely leaves the house, doesn't understand papers, doesn't have a lawyer. We convince her to sign, saying it's tax stuff. She'll sign anything you ask." "I don't know, Patricia. I feel guilty." "Guilty? Her voice became sharp. What about the weight of losing everything, of having a bad credit rating, of going back to living in a rented apartment, because that's what's going to happen if we don't solve this. You choose your mother or our future. Another silence, and then I heard my son's voice, low, defeated, clearer. Okay, tomorrow I'll talk to her. My world collapsed again, but this time not from surprise, from confirmation. I returned to my room in silence, locked the door, sat on the bed, and listened to that recording 3 times, just to make sure it wasn't a nightmare. $87,000 in debt, $1,230 for the car, a loan of $420,000 using my house as collateral. And my son, my only son whom I raised alone, whom I paid for college, whom I gave shelter and food, had chosen, and he hadn't chosen me. I grabbed my cell phone, sent the audio to Attorney Harrison via WhatsApp with a short message. Attorney, I have the evidence we needed. I need you to speed everything up. I don't have any more time to waste. He responded in 2 minutes, received, tomorrow at 8 in the office. We're going to fight back. I lay in that bed looking at the ceiling. Outside, I heard Patricia and Brandon returning to their routine as if nothing had been said. Television on, laughter, normalcy, but nothing would be normal anymore because the war had changed levels, and now I had ammunition. I woke up Tuesday with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't anger. Anger is hot, impulsive, blind. What I felt was cold, calculated, precise. It was justice. I dressed in my best outfit, gray dress pants, white button-up blouse, black blazer I wear for important occasions. I applied lipstick, pinned up my hair, put on closed-toe shoes, looked in the mirror, and saw a different woman from the one who had been humiliated on Saturday. I went downstairs at 7 in the morning. Brandon had already left for work, coward, running away before the conversation Patricia had told him to have with me. She was still sleeping, of course. I left a note on the fridge, went out to handle some matters. I'll be back in the afternoon. I took the bus downtown. I arrived at Attorney Harrison's office 5 minutes before 8. He was already there with fresh coffee and a thick folder on the table. Mrs. Martha, he squeezed my hand firmly. I listened to the recording 5 times. We have them in the palm of our hand. He opened the folder. But I need you to understand. What we're going to do now has no turning back. Once we start, it's going to hurt. For them and for you. Attorney, it already hurt. It already hurt too much. Now, it's time to stop feeling and start acting. He smiled. A sad but proud smile. Then, let's go to the plan. We spent 2 hours in that office. Attorney Harrison had everything mapped out with the precision of an engineer. And best of all, he had discovered things even I didn't know. First piece of information, the house was purchased exclusively with your money. $380,000 proven. Brandon entered the deed as a donation from you without financial consideration. This means legally you can revoke that donation. Can I? You can. There are 3 legal reasons to revoke a donation: serious ingratitude by the donee, need of the donor, or breach of obligation. In your case, we have serious ingratitude proven. He tapped the table where the recording lay. Attempted misappropriation. Public humiliation, emotional abandonment. I felt a lump in my throat. Emotional abandonment. That's what it was. My son had abandoned me without leaving home. Second piece of information, I researched their debts. $87,000 on credit cards is no joke. The car, an imported SUV, financed over 84 months. They pay $1,230 per month and have already missed 3 payments. The bank is going to repossess the vehicle in 60 days if they don't get current. They don't have money to pay, Mrs. Martha. They don't have money even to eat. You know who pays the grocery bill? You. You know who pays electricity, water, gas, internet, housekeeper? You. They live off appearances. Instagram full of photos at fancy restaurants, designer clothes, resort trips, but it's all credit card. It's a house of cards about to fall. I thought about all the times Patricia came home with shopping bags, all the times I asked them to help with bills and they said, "This month is tight." All the times I, with my $800 retirement, held the house together alone while they showed off. And there's more. Attorney Harrison pulled out another document. The house transfer attempt they made was to get a $420,000 loan. I got a copy of the proposal they made at the bank. Look at this interest rate, 3.9% per month. I did the mental math. That's more than 50% a year. Exactly. In 2 years, the debt would double, and as collateral, your house. If they didn't pay, the bank would take the property. And guess who would be on the street? Me, the rightful owner, while they would flee to another place, leaving me with nothing. I felt something freeze inside my chest. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was pure indignation. What do I do, attorney? He opened a thin smile. We're going on 3 fronts. First, donation revocation process. Remove Brandon's name from the deed, and the house returns to being 100% yours. Second, lawsuit for moral damages. Attempted misappropriation, humiliation, emotional abandonment. Third, reimbursement of amounts. Reimbursement? You paid $95,000 for his college, $12,000 for the bride's dress, $28,000 for the wedding reception, $35,000 down payment on the car that's in both their names, not counting renovations, furniture, appliances. Adding everything up, $213,000 in donations that can be legally questioned, since there was subsequent ingratitude. $213,000 was almost everything I had saved and invested throughout my life. How long does all this take? If we act fast, 3 months for the revocation process to go through. The moral damages lawsuit takes longer, about 8 months. But what's important is to start now, and there's something we can do immediately. What? Preliminary injunction. We ask the judge to block any transaction related to the house. They won't be able to sell, rent, use as collateral. Nothing. And you, meanwhile, can request the eviction of the property. My heart raced. Eviction? It's your house, Mrs. Martha. Legally, you can ask them to leave. Give them 30 days' notice, and if they don't leave voluntarily, justice will make them leave. Imagining my son being evicted from the house I built was painful, but imagining myself being robbed and thrown on the street was worse. How much will all this cost? About $25,000 in fees and court costs. We can pay in installments if needed. $25,000. It was almost everything I had saved for emergencies. But what emergency greater than this? Let's move forward. Attorney Harrison extended his hand. I squeezed it firmly. You're brave, Mrs. Martha. No, attorney. I'm tired of being stepped on. I left that office with a folder full of documents to sign, a plan laid out, and a strange feeling in my chest. It wasn't relief, it was power. The power of someone who finally takes control of their own life. I returned home at noon. Patricia was in the living room on her phone, laughing at some video. When she saw me, she pretended to be serious. Hi, mother-in-law. Did you go to the doctor? I went to handle some matters. I didn't lie, didn't give details. Oh, okay. Brandon said he needs to talk to you tonight. It's about some house papers. My stomach churned. Papers? It's tax stuff. These boring bureaucracies. She smiled, that fake, rehearsed smile. Okay, we'll talk. I went up to my room, locked the door, grabbed my cell phone and sent a message to Attorney Harrison. They're going to try to make me sign tonight. What do I do? He responded in seconds. Don't sign anything. Say you need to read carefully. Ask to take it to your lawyer to analyze. Record everything. I spent the entire afternoon rehearsing. What to say, how to react, where to put the recording phone. I needed to be prepared, because from that night on, everything would change. At 7, Brandon arrived. I heard his voice greeting Patricia, the kiss on her cheek, the murmur of something I couldn't understand. My heart was beating so hard it hurt. Knock, knock on my door. Mom, can we talk? I took a deep breath. I put the phone in my pants pocket, already recording. I opened the door. Brandon looked serious, tie loosened, eyes avoiding mine. Patricia stood behind, leaning on the doorframe with that smile of someone who's already won. Of course, son. Come in. We entered my bedroom, all three. Brandon sat on the edge of the bed. Patricia remained standing, arms crossed. I leaned against the dresser facing them. Mom, We need to settle some things about the house. What things? He pulled an envelope from his pocket. Folded papers. It's to facilitate the estate, you know? When you're no longer here, if the house is only in my name, it's easier to handle the bureaucracy. Estate. As if I were already dead. I took the papers, read slowly, every line, every paragraph. It was exactly what Attorney Harrison had predicted. Complete property transfer, my name going out, theirs coming in. And where will I live when I sign this? Brandon blinked, surprised. What do you mean? You'll continue living here. For how long? As long as you want, Mom. And if you decide to sell? Patricia interjected. We're not going to sell, Mother-in-law. Come on. I folded the papers back, put them in the envelope, and returned them to him. I'm not going to sign. Brandon's face changed. Mom, I'm not going to sign anything without my lawyer reading it first. Patricia took a step forward. Lawyer? What lawyer? I looked into her eyes, long and hard. I let the silence weigh and said with all the calm in the world, the same one who's going to handle the donation revocation process I made to Brandon. Her expression froze. Brandon stood up. Process? What process? You'll find out soon. And I opened the bedroom door, an invitation for them to leave. Patricia passed by me, eyes flashing with rage. Brandon hesitated, mouth open, speechless. Mom, what are you doing? I held the doorknob. And finally, after years of swallowing bitter pills, I said what needed to be said. I'm defending myself, son. Something I should have done a long time ago. And I closed the door. Outside, I heard the explosion. I knew it. I knew the old woman was going to create problems. But it didn't matter anymore, because the game had changed, and this time I had the winning cards. The following 15 days were the tensest of my life. Brandon and Patricia barely spoke to me. When we crossed paths in the hallways, they looked away. Meals were eaten in sepulchral silence, or, most of the time, they ate in their bedroom. But I wasn't idle. While they ignored me, I was building my case, brick by brick. Attorney Harrison worked quickly. We filed the donation revocation lawsuit on a Thursday. The following Monday, the judge had already granted the preliminary injunction. The house was blocked for any transaction. Brandon and Patricia couldn't sell, rent, or use it as loan collateral. The bomb exploded on a Wednesday. Brandon came home at 6 in the afternoon with a letter from the bank in hand. His face was white, lips trembling. Patricia read over his shoulder and let out a scream. Judicial block. What do you mean, judicial block? I heard everything from my room. I came down slowly, holding the railing, phone in my pocket already recording. They were in the living room, the letter open on the coffee table. When they saw me, Brandon jumped up. Mom, what did you do? I did what I needed to do. You blocked the house. The bank denied our loan. We have bad credit, Mom. We're going to lose everything. Patricia pointed her finger in my direction, voice screeching. This is your fault, you selfish woman. We just wanted to organize things. Organize? My voice came out louder than I intended. You wanted to steal from me. Steal? What absurdity. We were going to keep living here, just going to make things easier. Make easier a $420,000 loan using my house as collateral. I dropped the information like a bomb. You think I'm an idiot? The silence that fell was heavy, suffocating. Brandon looked at Patricia. Patricia looked at the floor. How do you know that? His voice came out low, dangerous. Because I found out. I found out about the $87,000 debt. I found out about the car you can't pay for. I found out about the attempt to remove my name from the deed 2 months ago. With each phrase, I took a step forward, and I found out you planned all this behind my back, in this house I paid for, while you treated me like garbage. Patricia recovered her voice, now angry. You don't understand anything. We have bills, commitments, a life. You think it's easy to support this house? I support this house. I pay electricity, water, internet, housekeeper. You don't pay anything, because you never let us forget that this is yours, she shouted, face red. Everything is yours, right? The house is yours, the food is yours, the air we breathe is yours. It's mine because I paid for it with my sweat, with my sacrifice. Brandon interjected, voice trying to be conciliatory. Mom, let's talk calmly. We'll solve this as a family. Family? I looked into his eyes. Family doesn't try to steal. Family doesn't expel their own mother from the dining table. Family doesn't hire a lawyer to defend themselves, Brandon, but that's what I needed to do. He swallowed hard. You hired a lawyer? I did, and he advised me to do something I should have done a long time ago. I took from my purse a manila envelope, placed it on the table next to the bank letter. What's this? Patricia asked, voice trembling. Extrajudicial notification. You have 30 days to vacate this house. The world stopped. Brandon grabbed the envelope with trembling hands. Opened it, read it, reread it. You're evicting us? I'm asking you to leave because this house is mine. It's in my name, and I have the right to decide who lives in it. I'm your son, he shouted, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. How can you do this to me? How could you try to steal from me? My voice broke, but I didn't stop. How could you let that woman humiliate me in my own house? How could you scream at me in front of 30 people? How, Brandon? He had no answer. He just looked at me, the envelope in hand, as if seeing a stranger. Patricia panicked. We have nowhere to go. You want to see us on the street? You have 2 salaries. You have an imported car. Find an apartment to rent. Live within your means like normal people do. You're crazy, completely crazy. She grabbed her purse, car keys. Brandon, I'm not staying here listening to this. And she left, slamming the door so hard the picture on the wall shook. I was alone with my son. He sat on the sofa, head in his hands. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Mom! His voice came out broken. Can we talk, just the 2 of us? I sat in the armchair across from him. I let the silence weigh. I know I was wrong. He looked at me, eyes red. I know Patricia went too far. I know I went too far, but you can't do this. You can't throw me away like this. Brandon, you threw me away first when you put her name on the transfer attempt, when you shouted at me at the party, when you stopped seeing me as a mother and started seeing me as an obstacle. I never stopped loving you, Mom. Love isn't just words, son. Love is action. And your actions hurt me more than any punch could hurt. He was silent, absorbing. If I break up with Patricia, if I send her away, will you drop this? I looked at him. My son, my only son, the boy I carried, rocked, raised. And I saw in him not the boy he was, but the man he chose to be. Brandon, this isn't about her. It's about you, about your choices, about you trying to take me off the deed, knowing I would be left with nothing, about you humiliating me. You can't fix this by ending a relationship. This is who you are now. He took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder. So you chose the house? No, I chose my dignity. You're the one who chose the house when you tried to take it from me. I stood up, grabbed my purse, and before going up to my room, I turned one more time. 30 days, Brandon. That's what the law requires me to give. After that, if you don't leave voluntarily, the marshal will make you leave, and then it'll be much worse. I climbed those 15 steps for what felt like the last time, feeling the weight of the world on my back. But when I closed my bedroom door, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. I saw a strong woman, a woman who fought, a woman who didn't give up on herself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of who I was. Downstairs, I heard Brandon crying. Part of me wanted to go down, hug, forgive, because a mother is a mother, and this pain never completely goes away. But the stronger part, the part that kept me alive, working, fighting for 67 years, said, enough, you've already given too much. And for the first time in my life, I listened. The 30 days dragged like 30 years. Brandon and Patricia moved through the house like angry ghosts. She didn't speak to me. He tried sometimes, a conversation here, a look there, but I kept my distance. I needed to, because any weakness now would be used against me. On the 10th day, they hired a lawyer. I received a notification trying to contest the eviction, claiming Brandon was co-owner. Attorney Harrison responded with the donation revocation lawsuit, and all the evidence. 2 days later, their lawyer dropped the case. On the 20th day, Patricia tried emotional blackmail. She knocked on my door at dawn, crying, saying she was pregnant. When I asked for a test to prove it, she exploded, calling me inhuman, and disappeared into her bedroom. On the 25th day, they started packing. Boxes accumulated in the hallway. I heard the two arguing about what to take, what to leave, where they would go. That's when I received a phone call that would change everything. "Mrs. Martha, it's Attorney Harrison. I need you to come to the office today. Urgent." Did something happen? I discovered something you need to see in person. I arrived at the office an hour later. He had a grave expression, an open folder on the table, and a tablet in hand. "Sit down, please." I sat, heart racing. "Mrs. Martha," I continued investigating Brandon and Patricia's finances and discovered something delicate. "What?" He turned the tablet in my direction. It was a photo. Patricia in a fancy restaurant, hugging a man. It wasn't my son. "Who's that?" "Leonardo Ferris, businessman, owner of 3 construction supply stores, married, 2 children." Attorney Harrison swiped his finger across the screen, showing more photos. Patricia and the man entering a hotel. Patricia, inside a luxury car that wasn't theirs. They've been meeting for at least 8 months. I felt my stomach churn. Does my son know? I doubt it. She's careful, but there's more. He pulled out another document. "Remember that house transfer attempt? I discovered it was Leonardo who suggested it. He has experience getting loans using properties as collateral. He's done this 3 times with other properties. He was using her to get money, or she was using him, or both were using Brandon. Either way, this whole scheme didn't start with your son. He was manipulated from the beginning." I looked at the photos again. Patricia, smiling, happy, hugging another man while my son worked to support her lies. "Brandon needs to know this. Are you sure? It's going to destroy him." I thought about the humiliation I went through, his shouting, the theft attempt. He needs to know the truth, even if it hurts. Attorney Harrison printed everything. Photos, credit card statements, showing expenses at hotels and restaurants during hours when Brandon was working. Messages he obtained through legal process. We put together a complete dossier. "When are you going to show him?" I looked at the calendar on the wall. "Today. 5 days until the deadline ends. He deserves to know before leaving my house." I returned home at noon. Their car was in the garage. It was Saturday. They were both home. I went straight up to my room, locked the door, and waited. At 6 in the afternoon, I heard movement in the kitchen. I went down. Brandon was alone making a sandwich. When he saw me, he froze. "Hi, Mom." "Hi. Is Patricia home?" "She's in the bedroom on her phone." He spoke with a weariness I'd never seen in him. "I need to talk to you alone." He hesitated. "About what?" "About the truth." We went to the living room. I sat on the sofa, he in the armchair. I placed the folder on the coffee table. "Before you leave this house, before everything ends, I need to show you something. Not because I want to hurt you, but because you deserve to know." "Know what?" I opened the folder, placed the photos on the table one by one. I saw his face change from confused to shocked, from shocked to destroyed. This is a lie. Photoshop, something. It's not. There's date, time, location, everything proven. I passed the bank statements. "Look here. The Esplanade Restaurant, February 15th, 4 in the afternoon. She said she was going to the dentist, remember?" He grabbed the paper, hands shaking. "Plaza Hotel, March 8th, 2 in the afternoon. She said she was having lunch with her mother." "Stop." His voice came out hoarse. "Stop, Mom. I understand." "Do you understand what? That she betrayed you? That she's using you? That the plan to take my house wasn't your idea? It was hers and this man's?" I placed the last document on the table. This Leonardo has a record. 3 fraud cases using family homes as collateral. He finds married women, manipulates them, takes their assets, and disappears. Brandon was white, sweating, hands gripping his knees. For how long? at least 8 months. He closed his eyes. A tear rolled down. I'm an idiot. You're a man who was manipulated by her, and because of her, you almost lost your mother. He looked at me, and for the first time in months, really looked at me. Not as an obstacle, not as a problem, as a son looks at his mother. I screwed up everything, didn't I? You did. Can it be fixed? I took a deep breath. I don't know, Brandon. It hurt too much, but at least now you know the truth. At that moment, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Patricia came down, still in pajamas, yawning. When she saw the papers scattered on the table, her face lost all color. What's this? Brandon stood up slowly, grabbed one of the photos, showed it to her. Are you going to tell me what this is? She looked, swallowed hard, tried to smile. Honey, I can explain. Explain. He shouted in a way he'd never shouted in his life. It's a friend. Just a friend. We were talking about business. What business, Patricia? He threw the rest of the photos in her direction. What business does an unemployed woman have with a married businessman? 8 months. 8 months you were cheating on me and I didn't know anything. She backed up, trying to pick up the photos. Hide them. It's not what you're thinking. Then explain the hotel to me. Explain the restaurants. Explain why this guy is paying your bills while I'm drowning in debt. He doesn't pay anything. This is your mother's lie. She made everything up to separate us. Brandon laughed. A bitter laugh, without humor. Made up? There are photos, dates, bank statements. She forged them. She wants to destroy us. I stood up from the sofa, walked to her, and said with all the calm in the world, Patricia, you already destroyed yourself all alone. I just brought the truth to light. She stared at me with pure hatred. You're a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing her son happy. Happy? Brandon exploded again. Happy drowning in debt. Happy being cheated on. Happy almost losing my mother because of you? I'm not to blame if your mother is a selfish woman who won't let go of this house. This house is hers. It always was. And you knew that. You manipulated me to try to steal it. Patricia was breathing fast, eyes shining with rage. You know what? I'm tired. Tired of pretending I like you. Tired of pretending this marriage is worth anything. Tired of pretending your family is worth anything. The silence was brutal. Brandon took a step back as if he'd been punched. Patricia continued, now without filter, unloading years of lies. You think I married you for love? I married for the house, for stability. I thought it would be easy to push the old woman to the corner and keep everything, but she's too stubborn. Get out of my way. Brandon's voice came out low, dangerous. Or what? You're going to do what? Get out of my way before I do something I'll regret. She grabbed her purse. Keys. I'm leaving, yes. But I'm not coming back. You can keep your house, your mother, your mediocre life. I deserve more than this. And she left, slamming the door so hard the latch almost broke. The sound of the car starting, engine revving, gate opening, and she disappeared down the street. Brandon collapsed on the sofa, head in his hands, sobbing, tears streaming between his fingers, body shaking. I stood there, looking at my son fall apart. Part of me wanted to hug. Part of me wanted to say, I told you so. But I did something better. I sat beside him, didn't say anything, just placed my hand on his back, making circular movements like I did when he was a child and had nightmares. I'm sorry, Mom, he said between sobs. I'm so sorry. I know. I almost lost you. Almost. He lifted his head, face wet, swollen. How do I fix this? I took a deep breath. I don't know if you can fix it, Brandon. Some things break in a way that no glue can hold, but we can try to rebuild differently, new. Do you forgive me? Someday, maybe, if you prove you learned. He nodded, and in that moment, with my son destroyed beside me and the house finally silent, I felt something strange. It wasn't happiness, it wasn't victory, it was justice. Justice for the humiliation, for the disrespect, for the pain. The truth had come out, and the truth, even painful, always liberates. I wake up with the sun coming through my bedroom window. It's 7 in the morning on a September Saturday, and for the first time in years, I wake up without that weight on my chest, without fear, without tension. The house is silent, but it's a different silence. It's not the heavy silence of people avoiding conversations. It's the silence of peace. I get up, put on my slippers, go to the kitchen. I prepare coffee in the enamel pot my mother gave me 40 years ago, the one Patricia wanted to throw away because it was too old. Now it's back in its place of honor on the stove. I look around. The house is different. It's still the same structure, the same walls, but it seems different because now it breathes. The lace curtains are back in the living room. The bronze clock. I found an identical one at an antique shop in the Catskills. I had the same message engraved on the back. It strikes 8 in the morning now with its gentle chime that fills the house with memory. The paintings return to the walls, James's photo with a new frame, the Catskills landscape, the cross-stitch by my mother, and I added a fourth, a photo of me and Brandon when he was 5 on his father's lap, all 3 smiling at the neighborhood park. My studio was rebuilt. The Singer machine is back, oiled, working perfectly. The thread boxes organized by color on the shelves I had made, and there are clients. 3 party dresses ordered for this month, 2 pants alterations, a bridesmaid dress. I make between $3,200 and $4,500 a month. It's not a fortune, but it's mine. It's the fruit of my work. I finish my coffee, grab the hand-painted porcelain cup, the ones Patricia threw away, and that I rebought at the antique shop for double the price. But it was worth every penny. I sit on the back porch, looking at the yard. I planted roses, red, white, yellow. They're starting to bloom. I also put pots of basil, rosemary, mint. The smell perfumes the entire area when the wind blows. It's at this moment I hear the gate. Familiar footsteps in the side corridor. He appears on the porch with 2 grocery bags in his hands. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, son." Brandon places the bags on the white plastic table. "I brought everything from the list, and I bought that coffee you like, the expensive one. Because you deserve it." I smile. A small but genuine smile. "Thank you." He sits in the chair beside me. We stay in silence for a few minutes, just looking at the garden, listening to the birds. That's how we've been rebuilding, slowly, brick by brick, without hurry. Let me go back 6 months in time to tell how we got here. After Patricia left that night, she never came back. The next day, she sent a moving truck to pick up her things. Brandon stood in the living room watching the furniture she chose, her clothes, shoes, everything being packed and taken away. When the truck left, he looked at me and said, "Mom, I need to leave too. Not because you're kicking me out, but because I need to learn to live alone, to grow, to understand what I did." And he left. He rented a small apartment in Flushing, 6 blocks from here. 800 square feet, 1 bedroom, living room and kitchen. $800 rent he pays from his own pocket, the debts he took on all of them. The $87,000 from credit cards he's paying in installments, $600 per month for years. The car he returned to the bank. Now he takes the bus like normal people. And you know what he told me? "Mom, I'm free from pretending to be what I'm not." Patricia disappeared. I heard through neighbors she went to live with Leonardo. 2 months later, he left his wife and publicly assumed the relationship with her. The marriage collapsed. The business went bankrupt because of lawsuits, and I heard she now works as a saleswoman at a clothing store in the mall. I don't feel sorry, don't feel anger, don't feel anything. She's the past. The donation revocation process was completed in 3 months. The house returned to being 100% in my name. Brandon signed all the papers without questioning. "It's yours, Mom. It always was." The moral damages lawsuit took 5 months. The judge recognized the attempted misappropriation, humiliation, emotional abandonment. He ordered Brandon and Patricia to pay me jointly $52,000. Patricia never paid. She filed appeal after appeal but will lose. Her lawyer quit for lack of payment. Brandon, he came to me a week after the verdict. "Mom, I don't have $52,000, but I'm going to pay $200 a month. It'll take 20 years, but I'll pay every penny." I looked at him, my son. I paid for his college, wedding, car down payment, paid so much, and now he was offering me $200 a month for 20 years to pay a debt that not even money covers. Brandon, keep your money, pay your bills. Mom, I need to do this. I need to redeem myself. I thought and made a proposal. Then, don't pay me money, pay me presents. Come here every Saturday. Bring groceries, fix what breaks in the house, keep me company, show me you learned. He accepted and complies. Every Saturday at 7:30 in the morning, he's here. Sometimes he brings flowers, sometimes fresh bread from the bakery, always brings a hug. Back to the present, I look at my son beside me, drinking coffee from a simple cup, dressed in casual clothes, no ostentation. He lost weight. His face became more mature, but the eyes, those brown eyes that used to shine when he was a child, are slowly returning. How's work? I ask. Good. I got a promotion. I'm going to coordinate a construction project in Queens. $800 raise. That's good, son. Mom, he hesitates. Can I ask you something? You can. Have you forgiven me? I look at him. Really? I take time to answer because this question deserves an honest answer. Forgiving isn't forgetting, Brandon. I don't forget the shouting. Don't forget the humiliation. Don't forget the theft attempt. But I understand you were manipulated. Understand you made mistakes. And I see you're trying to fix things. So is there hope? There's always hope, but trust, that's built slowly, and you're building it. He nodded, eyes shining. I finish my coffee. Get up. Come, I want to show you something. We enter the house. I go to the studio. On the cutting table, there's navy blue fabric spread out. I'm making a suit for a client, his daughter's wedding. Brandon runs his hand over the fabric. It looks nice, Mom. I learned everything again. My vision isn't the same, but I bought special prescription glasses. My hands hurt, but I do stretching. And I'm happy doing what I always loved. I'm proud of you, you know? I look at him, surprised. Are you? I'm proud of your strength, your courage, not giving up on yourself even when everyone was stepping on you. He swallows hard. I want to be like that, strong like that. You will be. You just need to choose right next time. He smiles. A sad but hopeful smile. We spend the morning together. He fixes the laundry room faucet that was dripping, changes 3 burned-out light bulbs, cleans the clogged gutter. Son's work that should always have been his. At lunchtime, I prepare spaghetti with homemade tomato sauce and meatballs, the recipe he loved as a child. We eat together at the kitchen table. Not in the dining room, not at that table with so many bad memories. Here in the kitchen we start over. At 3 in the afternoon he says goodbye. Next week I'll come again. I know. He hugs me. A tight, long hug. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. And it's true, because a mother's love doesn't end. It hurts, disappoints, breaks, but doesn't end. When he leaves, I return to the porch. The sun is starting to set, painting the sky orange and pink. The roses in the garden sway in the breeze. I grab my phone, open the photos. There's one I took last week. Me in front of the sewing machine, smiling, holding a green dress I finished making. It was the client who asked to take it. Mrs. Martha, you need to document this. I look at that woman in the photo. Woman in gray hair loose on her shoulders, wrinkles around her eyes, prescription glasses, calloused hands, but smiling, really smiling. And I think about everything I went through, the humiliation, betrayal, pain. But I also think about the victory, recovering my house, my dignity, my life. I think about James. If he were here, what would he say? Martha, I always knew you were strong, stronger than you imagined. I close my eyes, feel the wind on my face, and whisper, James, I did it. I fell, but got up. I was stepped on, but fought back. And now, finally, I'm at peace. Sometimes people ask me, was it worth it? Was it worth fighting with your son? Was it worth all this suffering? And I answer, it was worth it, because I learned something fundamental in these 67 years of life. Love isn't accepting everything. Love isn't erasing yourself. Love isn't allowing them to step on you just because they're family. True love requires respect, requires boundaries, requires you to value yourself enough not to accept crumbs. I spent decades confusing submission with love, confusing sacrifice with devotion, thinking being a mother was swallowing any pain, any humiliation, any disrespect. But that night, when I got up from that table, the table I prepared, in the house I paid for, on the birthday of the son I raised, something inside me woke up, and I realized it's never too late to recover your dignity. It's never too late to say enough. It's never too late to choose yourself. Today, at 68, I live alone. I cook only for myself. I watch the shows I want, decorate the house the way I like, so late when inspiration comes, and I'm happy. Happy in a way I wasn't when I shared the house with people who didn't respect me. Happy in a way that only comes when you finally make peace with yourself. Brandon, he's learning slowly, stumbling sometimes, but learning. And maybe one day we'll manage to rebuild what was broken, not the same, newer, stronger, more real. And if we can't, I'll be fine, because now I know my happiness doesn't depend on anyone but myself. The sun sets completely. I turn on the porch light. I grab my notebook. I started writing, recording stories, memories. Maybe one day I'll publish. Maybe it'll help someone going through what I went through, and I write the last line of the day. I rose slowly, walked to the door, and did something that left everyone shocked. I chose myself, and that was the best decision of my life. I close the notebook, smile, and give thanks. I give thanks for the strength, for the courage, for having survived, for being here alive, whole, free. If this story touched your heart, if you've gone through something similar, or know someone who's going through it, leave your comment below telling us where you're watching from. Your story matters, your pain matters, and most importantly, your courage matters, because it's never too late to choose yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this story with whoever needs to hear that it's possible to start over, that it's possible to get up, that it's possible to recover dignity. Until the next story, and remember, you're stronger than you imagine. The end.